right, if you're looking for a great summer read to sink into, you might want to consider the latest from Vaughan. Sarah is the author behind the best-selling book, Anatomy of a Scandal So Good. In her new novel, she's introducing readers to a female MP being threatened online. She ends up in a pretty sticky situation after a tabloid journalist is found dead in her house. Vaughan is joining us this morning with more. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Okay, so the new book, it's called Reputation. What can you tell us about the story without giving too much away?
Oh, well, I think you've summarised it brilliantly. It's about an MP called Emma Webster. She's a relatively new MP, and she puts her head above the parapet. She decides to take on the issue of revenge porn, and as a result, she experiences massive of online trolling and aggression from constituents and people in the wider community. And then things get very dark for her. She's collaborated with a tabloid journalist, and as you say, she's actually become a bit entangled with him, and he's found dead in her home. It's really about the difficulty for a woman of navigating her way through public life with issues of stalking and internet trolling and revenge porn, and it's also about the difficulty of doing that as a teenage girl.
And I understand that you were inspired in part after reading about a female MP who had, what, 9 locks on her door?
That's right. It was in, I think, May 2019 when all the sort of Brexit, the aftermath of the Brexit vote was really very much felt over here. And there were MPs who were starting to talk about being trolled, and I read an interview with in a glossy magazine, part of a supplement of the Times, a newspaper over here, in which she talked about having 9 locks on her front door and a panic alarm by the side of her bed. And I just thought, wow. How would I react? I know I tend to catastrophise, and I thought, how anxious would I be in that situation? I also thought, how mad is it that we're putting this sort of pressure under? You know, we were doing this to our sort of public servants, really. And I just wondered, I thought it was a great setup for a thriller. I thought, you know, how would a woman react if she was under that sort of pressure and she was put in a situation with lots of jeopardy?
Yeah, and in the book, the main character here always has bottles of water around in case of an acid attack. She's got a getaway car at events. She places chairs between herself and the public during appearances for a safety buffer. What kind of things did you learn about safety precautions that MPs have to take, especially female?
Well, do you know what? That all came from my interviewing my then MP, who was a woman who, like a lot of these women, the women that I interviewed to write the book, and like my character Emma Webster, she was, she was attractive. She was in her early 40s. She was outspoken about things that mattered to her. I mean, it was just Brexit, but she stood up in the chamber and she talked about things that mattered to her. She wasn't prepared just to shrink on the back benches. And I talked to a member of her office staff to try and say, tell me about what happens when you have, we call it constituency surgeries over here. I think you might call them town halls, or they do in the US, when people come to meet their MPs. And this office manager, who was, perfectly normal woman, middle-aged woman, started running through all the precautions they had to take. And the thing that everybody notes when they read the book is these 2 1.5 litre bottles of water that are put on their desks, not in case they get thirsty, but in case somebody throws acid. And yes, you have a table in front of you and someone coming to see you so that you can kick it over or shove it towards you, and you make sure you've got an exit, and you make sure you've got a car there so you can get away.
Unbelievable.
And I just thought it was bizarre. We were discussing these in a very matter-of-fact way, and yet they were incredible precautions to be taken for, people who had no police presence, no security. And as we saw after I wrote the book, actually, we had a stabbing of an MP, a male MP, and there's been a murder trial.
Yeah, well, it's just shocking when people just doing their job. I'm assuming that's your dog.
Sorry, yes. Olive, can you? Sorry.
What kind of dog is it?
It's very hot here.
Yeah,
We're in the middle of a heat wave, and
I know. Just trying to keep cool. Okay, I have to ask you about Anatomy of a Scandal. It was one of my favorite shows to binge on. I loved it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, though, because it's one thing to write the book, and then it's another thing to see it come alive on screen. What'd you think?
Oh, there's no negative. There is no negative to having or there wasn't for me anyway, to having your book bought by the team behind Big Little Lies and then turned into a show for Netflix. I really loved it, and I was involved to the extent that I gave notes on various scripts, so that was really exciting. And I actually did that while I was writing Reputation, so I feel as if Reputation benefited from my observing what the scripts were going to be like. I got to meet the stars, and what really mattered to me you know, obviously there were changes. If you've read the book, there are slight plot changes, but I felt it was very faithful to the tone of the book and the things that I wanted to talk about consent and entitlement. And, you know, it was a #1 global show. It was for about 10 days. It beat Bridgerton. And for about 10 days, it was, you know, Netflix's #1 worldwide show.
Amazing.
So that was...
It
was brilliant.
I bet. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. Stay cool. Try to. A reminder to all of our viewers, the book is called Reputation. We'll be right back.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.